Hello, everyone. This is Carla, and welcome back to another episode of Throwback Thursday. So, for this Thursday, I will be featuring the Brightly Gleaming suite of products. We have the Christmas Gleaming stamp set, along with the coordinating Gleaming Ornaments punch pack. We have the very vanilla and copper classic weave ribbon. Has Merry Christmas on there in the copper foiling in two different fonts. We have the Star Designer Elements. These are in copper. We also have the Hammered Metal 3D embossing folder and the Brightly Gleaming Foil Elements. And we also have the Brightly Gleaming Specialty Designer Series paper. So the colors in here, along with the copper foiling, we have Pretty Peacock, Night and Navy, and Mossy Meadow. So this is the products that were in this suite. So let's go ahead, put this all aside, and get started on our projects. Okay, so for my first card, I have a piece of Pretty Peacock cardstock. This measures 11 by 4 1/4 and it's scored at 5.5. I have a 5 by 3 3/4 inch piece of the Brightly Gleaming Specialty Designer Series paper. I have a piece of Night and Navy that measures 4 by 2 3/4. And then I also had cut one of the Merry Christmas images off of that bolt of the classic weave ribbon. So to get started, I'm going to fold and burnish my card base. Now for this card, on the outside part, there won't be any stamping on this one. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my adhesive and I'm going to adhere my designer series paper to my card base. Actually, not quite yet am I going to do that because I need to do one other step beforehand and hopefully I didn't mess up. So I'm going to bring in the larger of the two ornaments from the punch pack, and out of this DSP I'm going to go in as far as I can, and I think I'm going to catch some of that adhesive. So I'm going to punch out this ornament out of the DSP. Okay, I'm going to set that aside. And now I can add the rest of my adhesive on this. I'm going to add some on the bottom here. Excuse me. And then I'm going to put some on either side. Okay. So for my runner here, sometimes the adhesive is not up at the tip, it's down here. So to advance it, I'm going to bring in my silicone craft sheet and I'm going to add some on either side there. And then I'm going to add this onto my card base like so. Okay, and then on this piece of the Night and Navy, I'm going to bring in my punch again, and I'm going to go as far as I can't talk. I'm going to go as far as I can with the cardstock, and I'm going to center it in the punch on either side, and I'm going to punch this out. Okay, and then I'm going to take my adhesive along with my piece of ribbon, and I'm going to add some adhesive to the back of this. I'm going to try and get all the way to the edge with it. Okay, and then I'm going to place that. Let's see, I'm going to go about here. We're going to try and get this centered from end to end. Let's see if that's straight. Okay, that looks good. We'll press that down. And then I'm going to bring in my, excuse me, I'm going to bring in my snips and I'm just going to trim the excess ribbon off of the edges. It's a little bit frayed on the side here. Okay. Get out of the way. Excuse me. Okay, so then for this piece here that I had punched out from the DSP, I'm going to add some more adhesive to that. And I'm going to attach that to the piece of the Night of Navy that I punched out. So we're going to double that up. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in my dimensionals. And I'm going to add, I'm actually going to double up on these dimensionals. We'll remove those backings. Okay, so on the back of my Night of Navy piece, I'm going to add dimensionals to this. Okay, a little piece of the ribbon on me. Okay, so I'm going to remove these backings. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my card base. And I'm going to center this on my card, like so. Okay, and then for this piece, I'm just going to put this right into that punched out opening, like so. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in two pieces from those copper foil elements, and I'm going to bring in my glue dots. So in here I do have some small ones. Let's see. These are leftover glue dots from past paper pumpkin kits. Okay, so I'm going to add some glue dots. Bring in my Take Your Pick tool. And I'm going to add two onto the back of this copper piece. I'll put one, let's see, put one down here. And we'll remove the backings from that. Okay. And then I'm going to take this and kind of tuck it back behind the top of the ornament and just press that down. And then for the back of the star, I'm going to add another glue dot in the middle. And I'll remove the backing off of that. And I'm going to place that star right on the top of the ornament, like so. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my Star Designer Elements, and I'm going to take one of these stars and I'm going to place that right in the center of my foil star, like so. And then I'm going to bring in the vanilla twine. This is from the Baker's Twine Essentials pack. This is currently in our annual catalog. And I'm going to tie a bow and have a bit of a long tail on it. You just have a little loop like so. Let me bring in my glue dots that I dropped on the floor. So let me quickly get those. Okay. So we're going to bring one of these larger ones in. And I'm going to place that right up at the top here at the base of this star. I'll remove the paper backing from that. And then I'm going to attach my bow, like so. And then I'm going to trim the tails of my bow, like so. Okay, so that is our first card. On to our second. Okay, so for our next card, we're going to be doing a little bit of everything. We're going to be doing some heat embossing, some dry embossing, and stamping. Yeah, stamping as well. So for this card, I have a piece of cherry cobbler. This measures 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4.25. I have a piece of very vanilla. This measures 5.25 by 4. I have a 5.5 by 2.5 inch scrap of cherry cobbler, and then I have a 3 a 3 by 2 3/4 inch scrap of very vanilla cardstock. So for my very vanilla piece, I will be using the tufted 3D embossing folder on this piece. So I'm going to set this aside because the parts where I heat emboss and emboss and die cut will all be done at the same time. So I'm going to set that aside. So for my card base, I'm going to fold and I'm going to burnish that. And I will set that aside. Okay. And then on this piece of very vanilla, I'm going to bring in the stamp that says Deck the Halls with Boughs of Holly. And I'm going to use my cherry cobbler ink. I'm going to ink this up. And I'm going to stamp that right in the middle. Okay. And then I'm also going to use the rectangle stitch dies, and I'll be using this smaller one here to die cut the Deck the Halls. So I'll set that aside. Then on this piece of cherry cobbler, I'm going to bring in my Versamark ink, and I have the 3 ornaments, and I'm going to be heat embossing this sheet. I'm going to bring in my embossing buddy, and I'm going to just brush that on my cardstock. This is going to remove any static and any oils from my fingers, so we don't have any loose powder sticking where we don't want it. Okay. Then I'm going to ink up these stamps. I'm going to stamp each one and get up really well. And I'm going to stamp it at an angle. I'm going to hold it for a moment so the ink transfers. Okay, I'm going to ink up the other one. Stamp that right next to it. And then my third one. I'll do that right over here. Okay. Close that up. And now I'm going to bring in my Embossings Additions Toolkit. And let's see, we don't need those. So I got my copper embossing powder, a little spoon, and I'm going to add some powder to my stamped images. I'm going to cover it twice and then knock off the excess. Okay, and then we got one more. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside. We're going to heat emboss that next. Let me close this up. And then take all this and move this out of the way. Okay, so for this part, like I mentioned, I'm going to heat emboss this. I'm going to die cut this Deck the Halls piece, and I'm going to emboss this. Now, after I finish heat embossing this piece, I'm going to bring in my 2 punches and I'm going to punch those out. So I will be right back. Okay, so let me bring in my pieces. So I'm going to take my embossed Very Vanilla piece and I'm going to adhere that to my card base. Make sure that we don't have any hanging off the edge. And I'm going to place this on my card base like so. Okay, and then on this little die cut piece that says Deck the Halls, I'm going to bring in my dimensionals. And I'm going to add 2 to the back of this. And I'm going to place this down in the bottom right hand corner, like so. Okay, and then for these ornaments, I'm going to add some adhesive to the back of these. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in my copper metallic thread, and I'm going to wrap this around my hand a few times. I'm going to add some of this to the back of our ornaments. So we're going to add a little bit more of the copper element. So once I wrap it around my hand, I'm going to twist it so it looks like a figure 8. And I'm just going to put that along the back of the ornament. Kind of tuck some of the loose ends and kind of spread it out a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to add some dimensionals to the back of this. Okay, we'll set that one aside. We'll do the same thing with this one. And then I'm going to twist it to make it like a figure 8. Stick that down in the adhesive. See, kind of take this end, just stick it down. Same thing with this end. Okay, and then I'm going to put some dimensionals on the back of this one. Okay, let's see. Actually, I want to take this thread and I want it to go in the other direction. Just going to move it over, like so. Then I'll move kind of slide this over in this direction, like so. And we'll stick that back down over it. Okay. And then for our smaller one, this one, make sure we want it to go the other way. We'll go this way. Okay, and then I'm going to wrap the ends in the back here. We'll add a couple of dimensionals to this one, like so. Okay, and then I'm going to bring in these ornaments and I'm going to add them to my card base. I'm going to add this one. I'm going to put this one about here. And then we will take the other big one. And I'll add that one up here. Actually, let me take this one, move it down just a little bit, like so. And this one we'll place right over here. Okay, and I'll press those down. And then I'm going to bring in my brushed metallic adhesive back dots. These are currently in our annual catalog. So I'm going to use these 3 small copper ones. And I'm going to place them right on these little dots that are in the embossing folder. So just adding a bit more copper to our project. Okay, so that is our second card. On to our third. Okay, so for my third card, I have a piece of Mossy Meadow. This measures 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. I have a piece of copper foil. This measures 4 1/4 by 4. I have a piece of the Brightly Gleaming Specialty DSP. This measures 5 by 1. I have a scrap. This is a 5 by 3 scrap of Very Vanilla. This is what we are going to stamp our greeting on. And then I have another piece of Very Vanilla scrap. This measures 5.5 by 2.5. And we'll be stamping our holly coloring and then fussy cutting out of that. So to start off, I'm going to fold and burnish my card base. Okay, and I'll set that aside. Now for this piece of copper, I'm going to be using the Hammered Metal 3D embossing folder. This is part of the suite. So I'll set that aside because we'll do all our coloring, fussy cutting, and embossing all at the same time. And then on this piece, let's put our DSP over there because we're not going to need that at the moment. So let me bring in my pretty Peacock ink. And on this piece here, I am going to stamp this holly 3 times. We'll be coloring these in with our stamping blends and then fussy cutting them. So I'm going to stamp these 3 times. Okay, and I'll set that aside. Then on this piece, I'm going to take the image that says Merry Christmas. Now this is a blocked image, so the writing in the middle will not be inked, it's the outer part. And we're going to stamp this right on the bottom edge here. And this I will be fussy cutting out. So this will be fairly easy since it's just, straight lines. And then I'm going to take my stamp that says, "And be jolly this season." And I'm going to ink that up. And I'm going to stamp that about here. And hopefully I left myself enough room. Okay, let me close this up for now. Okay, and then this piece here, I'm going to die cut using the stitched nested labels. Okay, so we're to the part where I'm going to speed up. So I'm going to die cut this. I'm going to fussy cut this out. I am going to emboss my copper foil with this embossing folder. And then for my holly and berries, I'm going to use my dark and light old olive and my dark and light calypso coral to color that in, and then I'll be fussy cutting that. So I will be right back. Okay, so let's bring in our pieces. So on this part here, the one with our greeting, I'm going to bring in my pretty Peacock ink again and a piece of scratch paper. And I'm going to use this little stamp that's got these little dots on it. And I'm just going to ink that up. I'm going to stamp off. And I'm just going to put a few of these going diagonally just to add some decorative element to that. Okay, done with that. So now let's go ahead and assemble our cards. So I'm going to bring in my adhesive and I'm gonna, I don't know what's up with this seal. For some reason it's just not staying near the tip like it should be. Okay. Oops. So I'm gonna take this piece and I'm gonna center it on my card base like so. Make sure that we're lined up at the top. Okay. We'll press that down. Okay, let's see. Do I got to trim any on the bottom? No, we're good there. Okay. So then for my strip of DSP, I'm going to add some adhesive to that. Okay, and then I'm going to add that about here. like so. And then I'm going to bring in my dimensionals. And I'm going to add some to the back of this greeting. Okay. And then we're going to add this right about here, like so. And then on our holly, we're going to take the dimensional and put it towards the tip of the two leaves, and we're going to add some adhesive down by where the berries are. And for this one, I'm going to place that one up here, like so. And then I'm going to do the same thing for these. I'm going to add dimensionals to the tips of these leaves and add adhesive to the area where the berries are. We'll remove these backings. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to add that one up here. And then for this one, we're going to come, I'm going to come about here, like so. And we'll press those down. And then for the greeting, with the Merry Christmas part of the greeting, I'm going to bring in my mini dimensionals. And I'm going to add 3 to the back of this. Remove my backings. And I'm going to add that right about, well actually before I put that down, I'm going to bring in my Wink of Stella and I'm going to put some on these berries. Over here. And then on the leaves, I'm just going to brush it following the veins of the leaf. I'm not going to put it on the entire leaf. So, and then I'll go ahead and put this greeting right over the top. So, okay, and then I'm going to bring in my glue dots and I'm going to add one right in between the leaves here. Remove the backing off of that. And then I'm going to bring in my linen thread and I'm going to make a double bow. And then I'm going to stick that right there on my glue dot. And then I'm going to trim the tails of my bow. And so that is our third card. So let me bring in the other two that we did. So we started off, and I'll move this out of the way. So we have a clean backdrop. So we started off with this really simple card, no stamping involved, just use the ribbon and some of the elements in the paper. Then we did this one where we did some heat embossing, dry embossing, and some die cutting. The copper embossing powder looks really good up against the richness of the cherry cobbler. Kind of move these so they're in the camera. And then for the third one, we kind of stepped it up a little bit, and we did some dry embossing, and we did some fussy cutting and coloring, and I think this came out really, really cool. So that's our cards for this episode of Throwback Thursday using the Brightly Gleaming suite of products. If you would like these projects, please give the video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. Growing my channel is something that I'm working on, and I would truly appreciate it. So until then, have a blessed one. Bye bye, everyone.